off your engine!
In California now, they're saying all vans and trucks have to be electric by 2024. But don't be shocked. This is laws they're creating, and there's so many loopholes, it would make your head spin. Now, this is the first of its kind law, and it requires certain big rigs and large trucks by 2024 to switch to non-polluting ways of going, hydrogen fuel cells, electric vehicles, whatever. I'm sure Rivian loves it because they're going to be making electric trucks up the wazoo. They got 100,000 of them promised to Amazon that they're going to be using for the Amazon delivery trucks, so they'll be happy that if they have to buy these things in California, they'll sell a bunch of them. The California legislators said, "We're glad that we are now leading the nation." Well, it's a law. Guess what? There's all kinds of holes in the thing. They're saying that at least 40% of the tractor trailers sold in California have to be powered by some form of zero-emission technology by 2024. Medium-duty trucks like Ford F-250 or Silverado HD have to switch to 55% of their sales by 2035. And some of the stuff is even 2045. So we're talking about 25 years in the future. Who knows what's going to happen 25 years in the future? What laws will come? What laws will go? Now, Volkswagen loves it because they've invested $2 billion in funds for planning more than 10,000 public charging stations. Now, some of this is from the zero emissions scandal. I always wondered, they say Volkswagen has to pay this money. You wonder, well, what happens to the money? It's not like Volkswagen gave it away. Volkswagen, with $2 billion of that money, is going to create these charging stations. They're not going to be doing it for free, right? It's going to be a profit thing, so they'll be making money on that. So these fines that you think they paid money to, it's just allowing Volkswagen to have another business here in the United States. And if you remember, I made a video earlier about that. The Volkswagen subsidiary is called EA, Electrify America. So it's not like the people that got screwed over by buying these diesel cars and trucks that they cheated on the emissions got the money back for anything. A lot of this money, in this case $2 billion of it, is going so they can create electric charging stations that they can charge people to make a profit on that. It just amazes me when you find out what actually happens with these things. They got these secret deals behind the panels. Oh, they have to pay all these billions of dollars. Then you look, it just allows them to have another business going. There's so much nonsense going on when there's a court settlement. And, of course, the lawyers get a bunch of money, too, so... It just amazes me, And here they are in California dreaming about 25 years from now they're going to have this. Who knows what's going to happen 25 years from now? Hey, maybe it'll come to pass. Maybe it won't come to pass. They're trying to force people to do it in California. Maybe a lot of people will leave California like they have been. A whole bunch of them moved from California to Austin, Texas here, and they like it here a lot better. Well, if you want an electric pickup truck, another company has gone into the fold there. Lordstown Motors just showed its first pickup truck. It's a $52,500 electric pickup truck, and they called it Lordstown Motors because Lordstown is where they used to build the Chevy Cruze. Well, they finally stopped making those piles of crap there, and now Lordstown Motors has taken over, and they are building electric trucks there. Now, it's nothing to do with the original factory and the number of employees. The Chevy Cruze factory employed 4,500 people. And this factory so far has 400 assembly workers, 100 motor line workers, 100 battery line workers, and 300 engineers. So that's 900 people instead of 4,500. So it's a lot smaller operation. But who knows where it will go? Lordstown Motors, $52,500 electric pickup truck. Looks more like a conventional pickup truck, which I think is a smart move because people who have pickup trucks, they generally like the idea of a pickup truck. They would think that the Cybertruck is a ridiculous-looking pile of nonsense that doesn't have a real trunk they can carry stuff with. So that's for the futuristic people. For people who really like pickup trucks, hey, this thing might hit there. 52.5, a lot of the Ford, Chevy, Ram pickups are that much. Some of them are almost $100,000. So, and they claim it's got a 250-mile range. Well, we'll see what happens with Lordstown, Ohio Motors coming up in the upfront, just like California saying they're going to force people to buy electric stuff, starting with trucks. Maybe they'll make a bunch of them and sell them in California. I'm all for the more competition, the better. Let everybody compete. There's an open market. People can make good ones. Let them go at it. Dreamer says, Scotty, do car mods affect the cost of insurance and should they be notified? Well, of course, they're supposed to be notified. Most people don't. And if you do modify your car, sometimes you'll even be dropped. If you've taken off pollution control or if you've disconnected the interlock brake system, the traction control, the company will drop you. So, yeah, you will pay more. It's based on horsepower. If you put a bigger engine in, they're going to charge you more because it goes faster. And, of course, you're supposed to notify people all that stuff. A lot of guys don't, but you're supposed to. Nesmo says, Scotty, what's your thoughts on the old Volvo 740? Oh man, those things could run forever. I had customers with them and the 240s. She's go 300, 400, 500,000 miles. The only real problem they had is the later model ones. They were all plastic, and it was cheap Swedish garbage plastic. So on the inside, the door handles would break off, and the inserts where you'd put your towels and maps and stuff in the door cards, they'd break and snap off, and the dashes would crack because cheap plastic. But those engines and transmissions would just run and run and run. I mean, they were solid, well-built vehicles. There's no arguing that. Most of them are pretty well worn out now. They got too many miles on them. This dude says, Scotty, what are the pros and cons of direct injected engines? They spray right in. They need a lot of pressure, but they atomize better and they get better fuel mileage. So then they decided to make GDI, gasoline direct, where they're not diesels, but they're gasoline engines. Atomize better, they pollute less, and they get more power. But on the other hand, that's done with a sacrifice of super high pressures. Instead of fuel injectors that are having 70 psi, they might have 1,200, 1,400 pounds per square inch pressure. Just gonna wear things out faster. That's just how it goes. They won't last as long. And you're gonna have more expensive repairs as they go on. And you can get intake valves carboned up, because in the old style injectors on gasoline engines, the gas is sprayed on the intake, so clean gas is sprayed on the intake valves on the back side. That cleans them. Gasoline's a pretty good cleaner. Well, with the direct injections, they're sprayed right into the cylinder, so there's nothing going on the intake except air and your PCV oil polluted air mixture from the engine crankcase, from the PCV. And eventually that builds up carbon. Companies like Toyota have dual systems now with GDI in the middle and then port injectors too on the side, and they keep it clean. You don't have to worry about it in those. But if they don't have the port and only the GDI injectors with modern cars, you're going to have problems with carbon buildup, and it can be a serious problem too. SJ Shady 0169 says, Scotty, any thoughts of the spammers on your chats? Oh, there's always going to be spammers. There's nuts out there in the world. I guess they have fun. They think that they're bothering me. Hey, you're like water off a duck's back to me. I don't care. I'm here to help real people with their real questions. I see a stupid question, I'm certainly not going to read it on air, so it doesn't bother me in the least. You know, there's a bunch of nuts out there, and you don't want to ruin a good thing because of a few nuts. It's like these people that they whine, oh, the world's falling apart, everything, and then you look and you say, gee, you know, that affects 1/1000th of 1% of the people in the country. Shouldn't be that big of a deal, you know? So these people that let the people that gripe about it, don't listen to them, because that old thing, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Don't give those guys the grease, or they'll keep squeaking even more. And we don't need any more. There's enough annoying people as it is. My advice, ignore them. They'll eventually go away, because nobody's paying attention to them. George says, hey Scotty, what's your opinions with Triumph motorcycles in terms of reliability? Very interesting questions. I've had English motorcycles my whole life. I've had BSA Nortons and Triumphs, and I liked them, but I'm a mechanic, and I was always fiddling around. Give me something to do, adjust this, adjust that. And I'm always adjusting stuff. And they leaked oil. I had to put new gaskets on. But then I bought a Triumph Thruxton, and this one is made in Thailand. There's like 12 British guys, and the rest are all guys from Thailand. Man, they built them solid. They're not a racing bike anymore. I mean, the thing goes like 120 miles an hour top speed. It's no racing bike, but it's big, and it handles great, and it's fun to ride. My wife even likes riding around it. The old Triumphs, the problem was they went from a gentleman's racing motorcycle of, 400cc, and eventually they bumped them up to 750. They just shook too much, and they'd rattle. And the old Triumph factories, the reason the motorcycles fell apart was because the machines that were making them were falling apart too after World War II. Where the Japanese, we bombed the heck out of them, and there was nothing left. They built all new factories and made the best motorcycles in the world in new factories. The British were trying to compete with these crappy old factories that were falling apart, and the pieces were just wearing out that were making them. So if you have to make a cylinder, and if the piece that's making it is worn out, the cylinder's going to be worn out too, even before you drive it. So, but now they make them in Thailand. Let me tell you, they can run forever. They are really well made. They're not cheap. They're not giving them away. And the funny thing is, now they're made in Thailand. If somebody buys one in England, there's a tax. And I saw that in England, those things are selling for like $26,000. When I was a kid, they were $900. Now in England, they're $26,000 because they come from Thailand. They put an import tax on it. Because even though they say Triumph on them, they're made in Thailand, so they're an import. It's a crazy world. It's getting crazier every minute too. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.